So the next question that I want to ask is about how to frame this kind of work that we do to a more conservative audience in a way that would resonate, right? So, as we've talked about before, the whole depolarization, dialogue, bridge building, peacemaking space is super liberal dominated. Even if these groups or organizations don't explicitly identify as being progressive or left or liberal, they de facto are very left, very liberal. The culture, the language, the ideological lens, it definitely leans left. And not a lot of conservatives participate in these spaces, and having a skewed ratio towards the left doesn't help with that either. And so I'm just wondering, how do you think some of the depolarization or de-escalation, peace building work should be framed in a way that could resonate more with the conservative audience? I'll just give you my opinion on something really quickly is
Mhm.
when people talk about making America great again, or making America great in general, my thought is always America ain't great when we're this divided. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way we can be a great nation and have any sense of national unity or solidarity when people are bickering at each other about political differences. Like, that is not sign of a great country. So, to me, the ultimate duty of patriotism and duty to serve my country as a proud patriotic individual is to try to bridge divides and make America great by depolarization. But a lot of people on both sides don't see it that way, which is fine. We all have our perspective. But yeah, what do you think of this question?
I definitely agree with that. I completely agree that it's even been said, a nation divided among itself cannot stand, and or a nation divided against itself cannot stand. Sorry, and it's true, and that's where we're at right now. So the depolarization for me, in terms of framing it for the conservative, is you know I can't speak for all conservatives and people like me that are nomadic centrist conservative leaning. I would if you drew a line down the middle, I would have to pick the conservative side. But when it comes to the approach, and again, I can't speak for all, but for me, like, I'm not trying to do hand holding, and I feel this, and yeah, don't get me wrong, feelings are important and they do matter, and it should be discussed, in a reasonable fashion. But and this is something I brought up on the project is just frame it with rules, and like, these are the rules. Stay within these lanes and you're fine, which is like a rules of engagement. You don't have to be friends with everyone. You don't have to be hand in hand and walking down the street, singing and skipping together. But if both sides, if both sides agree, like, these are the lanes we're going to stay in when it comes to conflict, when it comes to disagreeing, we agree not to do X, Y, Z. I think that's a much more efficient frame for asking conservatives to do these things. Now, the first question you're gonna get asked by anybody, but I know especially a lot of the guys I know is, well, what happens if they don't? What happens if I stay in this lane and they don't? Because I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and and I think that's a big mistake about depolarization, is not asking you to just sit and be assaulted or attacked without defending yourself. Like, that's not, and that's another thing is making the objective clear, which is like, I'm not asking you not to punch somebody in the face. I'm just asking you not to do it first. Like, if you're attacked, by all means defend yourself. But nobody's asking anybody to just stand there and take a beating. But when it comes to, like, you're standing on opposite sides of the protest line, and they're saying stuff at you, and you're saying stuff at them, just leave it at that. Leave it at, you can verbally disagree without having to come to blows. You can you can voice your opinion, because getting it down to, like, the micro level of, like, well, they called me an idiot. All right, cool. And a lot of people see those kind of verbal, you know, you know, attacks as reason to throw a punch. So, but it's not. And but you move it up to the macro level of, just don't throw a first punch. Yeah, let them say whatever. But if they cross this line, then okay, defend yourself. If they cross the line and put hands on you or do it, No one's asking you not to defend yourself or your own and your family or whatever. And I think framing it like that of just staying in the lanes, shifting your posture around what you agreed to do violence around. We're shifting your posture around violence, period, and just that let that be the last resort, and let it be, um, not your initial reaction when you do feel physically threatened. Because I get it, I've never been to a protest and probably never will, but I get it. You got high adrenaline going. You got the opposition right there at your toes, and they're screaming, you're screaming. That's a high energy, high stress situation, and it's not an easy thing to navigate when you're angry. And so I think that's a big problem with depolarization is it's easy to talk about this kind of stuff in these contexts or uh, in much simpler context. But when you're in that animal moment of facing off with the person that is screaming and disagreeing with you and calling you all kinds of names and takes a step forward, hackles on your neck might stand up a little bit. And you might feel the need to get a little froggy. So, what do you do? And how do you quell that? And I think that just takes time and work for both sides, left and the right, of just not letting that first reaction be throw a punch, swing a bat or fire a gun.